Welcome back to the Global Ledger. I'm Justin. Everything we've done up to this point, from the hierarchy of money to banks and shadow banks, to repo, collateral, funding markets, to discount rates and valuation, has been building toward this moment, because now we're entering the Crises Arc, a deep look at how modern financial crises actually unfold. We're going to kind of step away from what we see in headlines and some of the myths we may hear. We're going to look at the mechanics in this arc. And in the first episode of this arc is going to be the anatomy of a liquidity crisis. I would argue, the single most important pattern in global finance. Let's get into it. What is a liquidity crisis? People think a liquidity crisis means a bunch of panic, and although that is the case, but that's not actually what happens. A liquidity crisis is a system-wide collapse in the ability to obtain funding at reasonable terms. Is probably the best way I can put it. Liquidity disappears because collateral becomes uncertain, haircuts rise, lenders pull back, dealers shrink balance sheets, and leverage unwinds violently. So a liquidity crisis is a balance sheet crisis, not a psychological one, I could say. We could even say fear is the symptom of this, and balance sheet stress would be the cause. Let's look at the core dynamic of a liquidity crisis. So, number one, something breaks at the bottom of the hierarchy. So, as an example, commercial credit, structured credit, or shadow bank liabilities become suspect. Number two, everyone tries to move upward at the same time, from risky credit to repo to treasuries to reserves to cash, right? Number three, funding costs explode. So haircuts rising would be an example. Margins tightening. Repo becomes expensive or unavailable in this third dynamic. Number four, dealers pull back. Their balance sheets can't expand fast enough to absorb rising risk. Is a really good example of the dynamics. Number five, I would say collateral values fall, not because fundamentals change, but because forced selling accelerates declines. Number six, central banks must intervene when it's all said and done, because only they can produce the top level money the system is scrambling for. So a liquidity crisis is simply everyone trying to get closer to the Fed all at the same time. Now, every liquidity crisis begins with one of two things. Number one, a collateral problem. Example, subprime MBS in 2007-08, the UK pension collateral crisis in 2022, and even long-term bond volatility spikes. So when lenders don't trust the collateral, haircuts rise, and borrowers suddenly need more collateral than they have. So that's number one. Number two, I would say a funding problem. So an example, the 2019 repo spike would be a definite one. The COVID liquidity freeze in March of 2020. Corporate cash hoarding would be another one. And maybe we'll throw in the foreign demand for dollars blowing out, and you'll see that in FX swaps. Borrowers can't roll overnight funding, so they must sell assets, which depresses prices, which degrades collateral, which worsens funding conditions. It's really a loop and a spiral in a machine that speeds up when stressed. Now, how does it spread? Let's look at the liquidity cascade. So liquidity crises spread through interlocking chains. Number one, funding stops. Number two, collateral falls. 3, dealers shrink. Number 4, leverage unwinds. Number 5, cross-border dollar demand explodes. Number 6, asset prices crash for mechanical reasons. So number 1, funding stopping, right? So repo, unsecured lending, CP markets, FX funding. Number 2, collateral falls. So securities uses collateral drop in price. This is when haircuts rise and forced selling begins. Dealers shrink. They can't warehouse risk, so they have to protect their own balance sheet. Leverage unwinds. This would be hedge funds, banks, pensions, sovereigns, all delever simultaneously. And with cross-border dollar demand exploding, offshore borrowers scramble for U.S. dollars. And asset prices crash for mechanical reasons, not fundamentals, like I've mentioned. But because nobody can fund positions, this is why. So this is what happened in 98, 08, 19, 20, and even 23. Different triggers, of course, but very similar pattern. So why are modern crises faster? So in the old days, a crisis, took weeks or months to even unfold. Today, hours. Here's why. You have instant collateral pricing. You have algorithmic margining, intraday repo, real-time settlement, online banking outflows, wholesale funding dominance, digital communication, and global dealers connected 24/7. The system is faster, it's more leveraged, more collateral dependent, and more interconnected. This is why every crisis now feels sudden. It isn't sudden; it's just instant, really. Where's the central bank's role in this? And really, it's to stop the spiral. So there is only one entity that can stop a liquidity crisis. That's the central bank. The only institution that can expand its balance sheet without limit. It must lend against collateral nobody else wants, provide reserves to banks, provide repo to dealers, backstop money markets, provide swap lines to foreign central banks, anchor the top of the hierarchy. This is why every crisis ends with the Fed. Every crisis begins in markets. The Fed doesn't directly control. And this is why the Fed's balance sheet is the final firewall. In a liquidity crisis, the Fed becomes the dealer of last resort. So not to save banks, not to save hedge funds, and not to pick winners, I could say, but to stop the collapse of the system itself. And so understanding these liquidity crises can make it feel not as chaotic. But once you see the bigger picture, the all of the inner workings of the system, and their reaction to a liquidity crisis, the patterns make sense, and these signals start to become visible. In the Fed's actions, more importantly, become logical. Crises don't come out of nowhere; they follow the same pattern, in every time, really. So I want to thank you for listening to episode 31 of the Global Ledger. This episode marks the beginning of our deep dive into crises. Next time in episode 32, we break down one of the most important events in modern financial history. We're going to touch on the 2008 crises, repo, collateral, and the dealer collapse that took place. I'm going to keep this very mechanical and keep it. I'm not going to dive too deep into every detail, but I'm going to give you enough to digest. So once again, I'm Justin, and thanks for being here.